My wife's sister stole my credit card at 2 a.m. My wife snapped. She's just a girl. You're overreacting. I was sick in bed and replied, you're right. But the account she drained wasn't mine. Look, I'm not saying I'm a dramatic person, but when you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning, sweating through your third t-shirt of the night, convinced that your internal organs are staging some kind of mutiny against your will to live, and your phone starts vibrating like it's possessed by the ghost of a telemarketer who died mid-pitch. Well, you start to question your life choices. All of them. Including that sketchy gas station sushi I definitely should not have eaten 2 weeks ago, which may or may not have been the patient zero of this particular biological disaster. So there I was, Eli Morrison, 32 years old, supposedly a functioning adult with a decent job in financial consulting, reduced to a whimpering pile of mucus and regret, when my phone decided that 3:47 a.m. was the perfect time to throw a notification party. Ding, ding, ding. Each alert felt like someone was personally drilling into my fevered skull with a tiny jackhammer made of pure auditory sadism. My first thought, in my delirium, was that maybe the CDC had finally noticed my suffering and was reaching out to offer me some kind of posthumous award for most pathetic flu victim of the year. I was ready to accept. I'd even prepared a speech in my fever dreams, though it mostly consisted of me thanking NyQuil and cursing everyone who ever said, it's just a cold, drink some water. But no, of course not, because the universe has a twisted sense of humor and apparently thinks my suffering is more entertaining when it comes with a side of financial ruin. I squinted at my phone screen, which seemed approximately 7,000 times brighter than the actual sun, and watched as my banking app cheerfully informed me that my money had decided to go on vacation without me. Alert, $1,499 spent at Luxe Vibe Boutique. Okay, weird, but maybe I was hallucinating. The flu does that to you. Alert, $1,299 at Apple Store. Now hold on just a fever-induced minute here. Alert, $3,200 at Elite Travel Club. And there it was, the sound of my financial stability doing a swan dive off a cliff while flipping me the bird on the way down. I did the math, which was particularly challenging considering my brain felt like it had been replaced with lukewarm oatmeal. $9,000. Gone. Vanished. Yeeted into the retail void in less time than it takes to binge-watch a season of whatever show people are pretending to like this week. My account balance had dropped faster than my body temperature during the cold sweats, and that's saying something because I was pretty sure I'd lost about 15 pounds in water weight alone over the past 48 hours. Now, most rational people in this situation would immediately panic. They'd sit up, call their bank, maybe have a small anxiety attack, definitely spiral into a crisis about identity theft and whether they'd ever financially recover. Me? I looked at those notifications, let out a pathetic cough that sounded like a dying seal, rolled over in my sweat-soaked sheets that probably violated several health codes by this point, and whispered into my pillow with all the energy of a man who'd already given up on life. Please don't let it be my wife again. See, here's the thing about being married, and I say this with all the love and affection of a man who genuinely adores his spouse. Sometimes your partner makes financial decisions that make you question whether you accidentally married a really attractive toddler with a credit card. Maya, my beautiful, occasionally fiscally irresponsible wife, had a history of what she called impulse investments in our happiness, and what I called reasons I can't retire until I'm 87. But spoiler alert, folks, because life loves a good plot twist, it wasn't Maya this time. Oh no, it was so much worse. It was her younger sister, Kelsey, the 24-year-old self-proclaimed entrepreneur who once tried to launch a business selling used false eyelashes on Etsy because she read somewhere that sustainable beauty is the future. She lasted approximately 2 weeks before realizing that people generally don't want to buy eyelash extensions that have already been on someone else's face, no matter how many times you wash them. Revolutionary discovery, truly. Kelsey was one of those people who believed that having a vision board and an Instagram account with more than 500 followers qualified her as a business mogul. She spoke exclusively in hashtags and motivational quotes she'd stolen from LinkedIn influencers, and she had this absolutely mystifying ability to make every terrible decision sound like a brilliant strategic move. I'm not unemployed. I'm in my manifestation era. I'm not broke. I'm just pre-wealthy. I didn't crash your car. I just tested its structural integrity under non-ideal conditions. And apparently, at some point between my descent into flu-induced delirium and this moment of reckoning, Kelsey had gotten her hands on my credit card and decided to go on a shopping spree that would make a real housewife jealous. Right on cue, because the universe has impeccable comedic timing, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't the bank. It was Maya, texting me from literally the next room because apparently walking 10 feet was too much effort at this hour. Honey, don't freak out. Kelsey borrowed your card. She's just a girl. You're overreacting. I stared at that message for a solid 30 seconds, watching the words blur together through my fever-glazed eyes. Just a girl. Just a girl. She's 24 years old. At 24, I was working 2 jobs, paying student loans, and eating ramen, so often I'm pretty sure I briefly turned into a noodle. But sure, she's just a girl who somehow managed to find my wallet, extract a credit card, and spend $9,000 on luxury items while I was busy trying not to die from what I'm pretty sure was actually the plague despite what my doctor kept insisting was just influenza. You know what? Maybe it was the fever talking. Maybe it was the 37 consecutive hours of being conscious enough to suffer but not conscious enough to function. Maybe it was the fact that I'd consumed enough cough syrup to knock out a small horse and my brain was swimming in cherry-flavored chemicals. But something in me just snapped. Not in an angry way. In a cold, calculated, I've had enough of this nonsense kind of way. I typed back, my fingers shaking slightly from either the fever or the rage. Honestly, at this point they were basically the same thing. You're right, babe. But that account she drained wasn't mine. I watched those 3 little dots appear as Maya started typing, then stop, then start again. I could practically hear her confusion through the phone. And that's when something beautiful happened. My fever broke. Not in the traditional sense where your body temperature returns to normal and you start feeling human again. No, I still felt like absolute garbage. But that mental fog, that cloudy delirium that had been hovering over my brain like a toxic smog, it lifted just enough for clarity to come rushing in like cold water. See, the thing that Kelsey didn't know, the thing that Maya apparently didn't remember even though I'd mentioned it approximately 47 times over the past year, was that the credit card Kelsey had used wasn't connected to my personal checking account. It was linked to something much more interesting, much more complicated, and much more legally binding. It was connected to the corporate trust account I managed as part of my late Aunt Patricia's estate settlement. Aunt Patricia, bless her paranoid soul, had been a woman who trusted absolutely no one and loved legal documents more than she loved most of her relatives. When she died 2 years ago, she left behind a small fortune and approximately 9 million pages of stipulations, clauses, and conditions that would make a tax attorney weep with joy. One of those clauses, buried in Section 17, subsection C, paragraph 4 of the trust documentation, stated very clearly that any unauthorized use of estate funds by a family member would result in an immediate forfeiture of that family's claim to any inheritance. And Kelsey, in her infinite wisdom and complete lack of impulse control, had just triggered that clause by spending $9,000 of trust money on designer bags and Apple products. I lay there in my disgusting, sweat-soaked bed, feeling worse than I'd ever felt in my entire life, and I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who'd just realized that karma doesn't need your help. Sometimes you just need to step back and let the universe do its thing. That's when my fever broke, the actual fever this time, replaced by something much, much colder. The realization that I didn't need to get revenge on Kelsey for stealing from me. The paperwork would handle that all on its own. By the time noon rolled around the next day, I had graduated from actively dying to mostly dead but with better hair, which I considered a significant upgrade in my condition. I'd managed to shower, a Herculean effort that left me winded and questioning whether personal hygiene was really worth all that standing. And I'd even put on actual pants instead of the plague-ridden sweatpants that had basically fused with my skin over the past 3 days. I was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket like the world's most pathetic burrito, nursing my 4th cup of tea and contemplating whether it was possible to sue someone for giving you the flu, when I heard the front door open. The sound of expensive heels clicking on our hardwood floor echoed through the house, like the opening notes of a horror movie soundtrack. Click, click, click. Each step was confident, unbothered, completely unaware that she was walking into what would soon become the worst day of her life. I didn't even have to look up to know who it was. Only one person in my life walked like they were perpetually on a runway that existed solely in their imagination. Kelsey Peterson, my sister-in-law, the human embodiment of every live, laugh, love sign ever sold at Target, strutted into my living room looking like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. Specifically, one of those magazines that makes you feel poor just by looking at the cover. She was wearing brand new designer heels that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, carrying a handbag that I'm pretty sure I'd seen on Maya's Pinterest board with the caption, "Dream Bag," and sporting oversized sunglasses even though she was indoors and it was literally overcast outside. Her outfit screamed, "I have money," while her bank account whispered, "Actually, you don't. You just commit credit card fraud." She tossed a plastic grocery bag at me with all the grace of someone throwing food to a zoo animal. It landed on my lap with a sad little thump. "I brought you soup," she announced, like she'd just performed some kind of humanitarian service worthy of a Nobel Prize. "Maya said you were dying or whatever, so I figured I should, check on you." I stared at her, my nose still red and raw from 3 days of constant tissue abuse, my voice sounding like I'd been gargling gravel, my entire soul exhausted from existing. "You used my credit card at 2 in the morning, Kelsey." Her perfectly contoured face arranged itself into an expression of shock that was so fake it could have been used as a prop in a community theater production. She gasped, actually gasped, like a Victorian maiden who'd just been told that ankles were visible, and pressed her manicured hand to her chest. "Oh my God, how did you know?" I just looked at her, blinked slowly, processed the absolute audacity of that question. "Because Chase Bank sends me love letters every single time someone uses my card, Kelsey. It's this crazy new technology called fraud alerts. Maybe you've heard of it? It's very cutting edge, very modern. Banks have been using it for, about 20 years now." She had the nerve to giggle. Not a nervous giggle, not an embarrassed giggle, a genuine, carefree, oopsie, silly me, kind of giggle that made me want to throw my tea at the wall. "Oh, relax, Eli. You're being so dramatic. I'll totally pay you back." "With what money, Kelsey? Your good vibes? Your collection of inspirational Instagram posts? The revenue from your failed eyelash business?" I was too sick to maintain my usual level of polite tolerance for nonsense, and honestly, it felt liberating. Because unless manifesting abundance now comes with a direct deposit feature, I'm not seeing how this math works out. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, like I was the one being unreasonable here, and flipped her hair in that way that people do when they're used to getting away with things because they're pretty. "You're literally so negative. This is why you're sick, you know. Bad energy attracts bad health." I read about it on a wellness blog. Before I could explain to her that influenza is caused by a virus and not by my skepticism about her financial responsibility, Maya came storming into the room like a referee breaking up a fight at a kindergarten playground. She was already in full defense mode, arms waving around, face set in that expression that meant she'd already decided who was right before hearing any actual facts. "Enough. Both of you, just stop. I haven't even started," I croaked, taking a sip of my tea. Maya pointed at me like I was a misbehaving child. "You always blow things out of proportion, Eli." She made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. You're acting like she committed murder. No, if she'd committed murder, at least I'd get life insurance money. What I got instead was $9,000 in charges for stuff she doesn't need and can't afford. I turned to look at Kelsey, who was now examining her new nails like this conversation was boring her. "Tell me something, Kels. What exactly did you buy at Lux Vibe Boutique at 2:47 in the morning? Because I'm genuinely curious what's so urgent that it can't wait until the sun comes up." She shrugged, completely unbothered. "I couldn't sleep, and I saw this bag I'd been wanting, and it was, calling to me, you know? It was a sign from the universe." "The universe told you to commit fraud?" "It's not fraud if we're family," she said, with the confidence of someone who'd never actually looked up the legal definition of fraud. Maya stepped between us, literally putting herself in the middle like she was trying to prevent a physical altercation, which was hilarious considering I could barely stand up without getting dizzy. "Okay, that's it. Eli, you need to calm down. She's just a girl. She didn't mean any harm." And there it was again. Just a girl. Like being female and in your 20s was some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card for stealing. Like having a cute smile and knowing how to contour meant you were exempt from consequences. I was so tired of this narrative, so exhausted by the constant excuses, so done with being the bad guy for expecting basic human decency and legal behavior. I smiled at Maya, the kind of smile that probably looked friendly if you ignored the absolute chaos brewing behind my eyes. You're absolutely right, sweetheart. I'm totally overreacting. In fact, you know what? I'm done being upset about this. I'm done blowing things out of proportion. I'm especially done blowing our savings on your sister's shopping addiction. They both looked at each other, and I could see the relief flooding their faces. They actually thought I was giving up. They genuinely believed that I'd just accepted this situation, that I'd roll over and let it go because that's what I always did. That's what I'd done for the past 3 years of marriage. Kept the peace, avoided conflict, let things slide because it was easier than fighting. Maya reached out and squeezed my shoulder, her face softening into something almost affectionate. Thank you, honey. I knew you'd understand. This is why I love you. You're so reasonable. Kelsey blew me a kiss, already heading toward the door in her stolen shoes. Thanks, Eli. You're literally the best brother-in-law ever. I'll Venmo you next week. I promise. I waved weakly from my blanket cocoon, watching them both leave the living room, chattering away about some brunch place they wanted to try this weekend. I heard the front door close, heard Kelsey's car start up and drive away, heard Maya humming to herself in the kitchen as she made herself a smoothie like everything was perfectly fine in our world. They thought it was over. They genuinely believed the crisis had been averted, the drama resolved, the conflict neatly swept under the rug where all our other problems lived. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have possibly known because they'd never bothered to actually listen to me when I talked about my work, was that it wasn't over at all. It was just beginning. And unlike Kelsey's various business ventures, this one was actually going to succeed. The moment I heard Maya's car pull out of the driveway, she was taking Kelsey to get her nails redone because apparently the fresh set from last week wasn't vibing with her energy anymore. I grabbed my phone with the kind of determination usually reserved for people who've just discovered their Uber Eats order was wrong. My fingers were still a little shaky from the fever, but my resolve was rock solid. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for, Richard Adler, Esquire. Now, Mr. Adler wasn't just any lawyer. He was my financial advisor, my estate consultant, and the closest thing I had to a professional secret weapon. The man was 72 years old, had been practicing law since before I was born, and had this absolutely beautiful ability to smell stupidity from approximately 3 zip codes away. He'd handled Aunt Patricia's estate with the precision of a surgeon and the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely enjoyed complicated legal documents, which made him either a genius or a sociopath. Possibly both. I hit the call button and waited, listening to it ring while I blew my nose for the 800th time today. He picked up on the second ring, his voice crisp and alert despite it being a Saturday afternoon. Eli Morrison, I was wondering when you'd call. Your heart rate's been elevated for the past 12 hours according to my client monitoring system. You monitor my heart rate? Of course not. But you sound like you believe I do, which means you're stressed. Talk to me. I couldn't help but laugh, which turned into a cough, which turned into me wheezing for about 30 seconds while Adler waited patiently on the other end. When I finally caught my breath, I said, "The prophecy came true, Adler. The in-law menace has struck." Kelsey found the credit card. There was a pause, and then I heard what I can only describe as the sound of an old man's soul experiencing pure schadenfreude. The younger Peterson sister. The one who tried to trademark the phrase blessed and stressed last year. That's the one. And she used the estate card? $9,000 in about 2 hours. Lux Vibe Boutique, Apple Store, Elite Travel Club. She hit the holy trinity of financially irresponsible purchases. Adler made a sound that was somewhere between a chuckle and a growl. Well, did she know it was the estate card, or did she just grab whatever was convenient? I'm going to go with option B, considering she's never demonstrated any ability to read fine print, think ahead, or generally use her brain for anything other than storing TikTok dances. And your wife? I sighed, sinking deeper into my couch. Maya thinks I should let it go. Says Kelsey's just a girl who made a mistake, and that I'm being dramatic for caring about $9,000 disappearing from my account in the middle of the night. Fascinating, Adler said, and I could hear him typing on his computer. So they don't know about the clause. They definitely don't know about the clause. Excellent. So the question becomes, do you want to press criminal charges and make this a legal nightmare that follows your sister-in-law for the next 7 to 10 years? Or would you prefer to make this educational? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Educational, but with a full scholarship in regret and a minor in consequences. My favorite kind of lesson plan. Let me pull up the trust documents. Here's the thing that Kelsey, Maya, and pretty much everyone in Maya's family didn't understand about Aunt Patricia's estate. It wasn't just a pile of money sitting in an account waiting to be distributed. It was a carefully constructed legal fortress designed by a woman who'd spent 40 years as a corporate accountant and had seen every possible way people could screw each other over financially. Aunt Patricia had trusted no one. Not her siblings, not her nieces and nephews, not even her own children. And she'd built her estate plan like someone preparing for a zombie apocalypse where the zombies were her relatives trying to get their hands on her money. The trust she'd created had more clauses, conditions, and tripwires than a Mission Impossible movie. There were provisions about drug testing, education requirements, employment verification, and my personal favorite, the unauthorized use clause. Section 17, subsection C, paragraph 4, which I'd read so many times I could practically recite it in my sleep, and had, during several fever dreams over the past few days. Adler read it out loud anyway, his voice taking on that formal lawyer tone that meant business. Any beneficiary or family member of a beneficiary who engages in unauthorized use, misappropriation, or fraudulent access of estate funds shall result in immediate and permanent forfeiture of all inheritance claims for that beneficiary's entire family unit, with said funds to be redirected to the designated charitable organization as outlined in Section 23. Beautiful, I whispered. It's like poetry. It's like your aunt knew someone would eventually do something supremely stupid and wanted to make sure they paid for it in the most comprehensive way possible, Adler corrected. Now let's talk specifics. The card Kelsey used was the corporate trust card, correct? Correct. The one I use for estate-related expenses and management fees. And she is not an authorized user on this card. She's not even authorized to know this card exists. Perfect. And the $9,000 in charges. Were any of them legitimate estate expenses? I snorted, which hurt my sinuses. Unless the estate suddenly needs designer handbags, the latest iPhone, and a membership to a travel club that promises luxury experiences for the modern nomad, then no. None of it was legitimate. Then we have what the law calls an open and shut case, and what I call a teaching moment. I could hear the satisfaction in Adler's voice. He lived for this stuff. Here's what's going to happen. I'll file the unauthorized use report with the trust administrator on Monday morning. That triggers an automatic audit of all recent transactions. The audit will identify the fraudulent charges, which will activate the forfeiture clause. Once that clause is activated, all inheritance claims from your wife's side of the family, which includes Maya, Kelsey, and their parents, will be permanently revoked. How much are we talking about? Last valuation had their portion at approximately $217,000. I sat up so fast I got dizzy and had to lie back down. $217,000. Yes, your Aunt Patricia left 40% of her estate to your mother's side of the family, which includes you. The remaining 60% was split between various relatives, including your wife's branch through her mother's connection. It's a bit complicated. Lots of second cousins and family tree nonsense. But the bottom line is that Kelsey's little shopping spree just cost her family over $200,000. I was quiet for a moment, processing this. I'd known about the inheritance, obviously. I'd known about the clause. But somehow, hearing it laid out like this, understanding the full scope of what was about to happen, made it feel suddenly very real and very serious. Part of me, the part that wasn't currently drowning in mucus and resentment, felt a tiny twinge of guilt. That part lasted approximately 4 seconds before I remembered Kelsey's face when she'd tossed that bag of soup at me, completely unbothered, totally unrepentant, already planning her next shopping trip with money she hadn't earned. Do it, I said. File the report. Trigger the audit. Let the clause do what it was designed to do. You're sure? This will cause significant family drama. Adler, I'm currently sick with the flu, broke because my sister-in-law committed fraud, and being gaslit by my own wife who thinks I'm the problem for noticing that $9,000 disappeared. The drama's already here. I'm just adding legal documentation. He laughed, a sound like crackling paper. I'll have everything filed by Monday close of business. The audit should take about a week, maybe 2 if they're thorough. You'll need to come in and sign some documents. Provide a statement about the unauthorized charges. Confirm that you didn't give permission for the card to be used. Not a problem. I'm recovering from the plague anyway, so I'll have plenty of time. One more thing, Adler said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. When this hits, and it will hit hard, your wife is going to be upset. Very upset. Are you prepared for that conversation? I looked around my living room, at the tissues scattered across the coffee table, at the empty tea mugs, at the general disaster zone that my life had become. Adler, I'm a man who's been betrayed by his own immune system, his credit card, and his family's common sense all in the same week. I'm as prepared as I'm ever going to be. That's the spirit. I'll be in touch Monday. He hung up, and I sat there in the silence of my house, wrapped in my blanket, feeling simultaneously terrible and absolutely triumphant. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to yell or fight or make dramatic speeches about betrayal and trust. I just needed to let the paperwork do its job. Aunt Patricia, wherever she was probably laughing her ass off. By the time evening rolled around, I had successfully migrated from the couch to the bed, which felt like completing an Ironman triathlon, but with more coughing and less athletic glory. I was propped up against approximately 17 pillows, because apparently that's the magic number where you can breathe and sleep simultaneously. When Maya walked into our bedroom carrying a mug of tea and wearing what I'd come to recognize as her guilty wife face. It's similar to her regular face, but with more eye contact avoidance and excessive hair tucking behind her ears. "You're mad," she said, setting the tea down on my nightstand like a peace offering from someone who knew they were in the wrong, but hadn't quite figured out how wrong yet. I looked at her through my fever-glazed eyes, my nose approximately the color and texture of a boiled lobster from 3 days of constant tissue abuse. "No," I sniffled, my voice sounding like someone had replaced my vocal cords with sandpaper. "I'm not mad. I'm just mourning the death of common sense in this household. We should probably hold a funeral. I'll wear black. You can bring Kelsey. She can wear whatever designer outfit she bought with my money." Maya sat on the edge of the bed, doing that thing where she tries to look sympathetic while simultaneously preparing her defense. It's a delicate balance she's perfected over 3 years of marriage. "It was a mistake, honey. She feels terrible about it." I raised one eyebrow, which took more energy than it should have. Does she? Does she really feel terrible? Because when she was here earlier, throwing soup at me like I was a sick animal at the zoo, she seemed pretty comfortable with her choices. In fact, I'd say she was practically glowing with the confidence of someone who thinks Gucci is a personality trait. "You're being mean. I'm being accurate. There's a difference." I took a sip of the tea, which was too hot and burned my tongue, because apparently the universe had decided that I hadn't suffered enough this week. "Maya, she spent $9,000. In 2 hours. Do you understand how impressive that actually is? I couldn't spend $9,000 in 2 hours if I tried. I'd get tired. I'd need snacks. I'd have to sit down and really think about my life choices. But Kelsey? She moved through those stores like a woman possessed by the spirit of every real housewife, who ever got a black Amex and zero financial counseling. Maya's face was doing that thing where it cycles through several emotions at once. Guilt, defensiveness, frustration, and a touch of annoyance that I wasn't just letting this go like I usually did. She said she'll pay you back. "With what money, Maya?" I set down my tea, sitting up a little straighter despite my body's protests. Her last job was working at a boutique for 3 weeks before she quit because her manager didn't respect her creative vision for folding t-shirts. Before that, she was a social media consultant for a company that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. And before that, she was selling used eyelashes on Etsy, which I think we can all agree was humanity's lowest moment. So please, enlighten me. Where exactly is this payback money coming from? Her OnlyFans tips? Her vision board? The cosmic energy she's always manifesting but never quite receiving? You're being cruel. I prefer the term realistic with sarcastic undertones. I grabbed another tissue and blew my nose, which at this point felt like it should just fall off my face and save us all the trouble. "Look, I get it. She's your sister. You love her. You want to protect her. But at some point, you have to recognize that protecting someone from consequences isn't love, it's enabling. And enabling is just a fancy word for helping someone destroy their life in slow motion while you cheer them on from the sidelines. Maya stood up, her arms crossed, her face settling into that stubborn expression that meant we were about to have a fight that neither of us would win. She's 24 years old, Eli. She's still figuring things out. I was paying rent and student loans at 24. I was working 2 jobs. I was eating ramen so often that I'm pretty sure my blood type temporarily changed to MSG. But sure, let's pretend that being 24 means you're exempt from basic concepts like don't steal and designer bags aren't necessities. Not everyone had your upbringing. My upbringing, Maya, we grew up in the same economic bracket. Your parents have money. Her college was paid for. She had every advantage I didn't, plus a safety net the size of a circus tent. The only difference is that I was raised by someone who believed in consequences, and she was raised by people who think participation trophies should extend into adulthood. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see I'd hit a nerve. Good. Maybe if I poked enough nerves, one of them would connect to the part of her brain that understood basic financial responsibility. You're saying my parents are bad parents? I'm saying your parents created a human being who thinks stealing $9,000 is a whoopsie that can be fixed with a promised Venmo payment and some cute puppy dog eyes. So you tell me what that says about their parenting strategy. The room went quiet except for the sound of my congested breathing, which honestly sounded like Darth Vader if he'd decided to take up smoking. Maya just stared at me, and I could see her cycling through her options. Continue the fight, storm out dramatically, try to guilt me into backing down, or maybe, just maybe, actually think about what I was saying. She chose option 4, which surprised me. She sat back down on the bed, her shoulders sagging slightly. What do you want me to do, Eli? She's my sister. I can't just abandon her. I'm not asking you to abandon her. I'm asking you to stop defending her when she does indefensible things. I'm asking you to recognize that there's a difference between support and enabling. I'm asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, letting her face the consequences of her actions would actually be the most loving thing you could do. She was quiet for a long moment, picking at a thread on our comforter. You're not going to let this go, are you? And that's when something shifted in me. That's when I realized that this conversation, this moment, was probably going to be the last time I'd have to explain this situation, because by Monday afternoon, the entire dynamic would change. The paperwork would be filed. The audit would begin. The clause would activate. And suddenly, I wouldn't need Maya to understand or agree or see my point of view, because the legal system would do all the explaining for me. I smiled, which probably looked creepy given my current state of illness and general dishevelment. Actually, sweetheart, I already let it go. She looked confused, tilted her head like a puppy trying to understand quantum physics. You did? Yep. Completely released it. Forgave and forgot. Water under the bridge. Ancient history. I'm basically the Buddha of credit card fraud victims. Just sitting here, accepting the universe's will, vibing with the energy of financial ruin. She studied my face, trying to figure out if I was being serious or sarcastic, which was fair because even I wasn't entirely sure anymore. The fever had reached that stage where everything felt slightly surreal, like I was watching my own life through a TV screen with slightly off-color settings. Really? She asked, hope creeping into her voice. Really? I lied, which technically wasn't a lie because I genuinely had let go of the anger. I'd let go of the need for revenge. I'd let go of the desire to make them understand through argument and logic. I'd let go of everything except the quiet satisfaction of knowing that Aunt Patricia's lawyer was about to do something beautiful on Monday morning. Maya actually hugged me, despite the fact that I was essentially a biohazard wrapped in a blanket. Thank you, she whispered. This is why I love you. You're so understanding. I patted her back weakly, fighting the urge to laugh, which would have turned into coughing and ruined the moment. That's me. Understanding. Forgiving. Totally not planning anything. Just a sick guy accepting his fate. She pulled back, smiling now, the tension completely gone from her face. I'm going to call Kelsey and tell her you're not mad anymore. She's been stressed about it. Oh, absolutely. Tell her I said no hard feelings. Tell her we're family, and family forgives each other. Tell her I hope she enjoys her new purchases. Maya kissed my forehead, which was still slightly feverish and probably tasted like sweat and medicine, but she didn't seem to care. She left the room practically bouncing, already pulling out her phone to deliver the good news to her delinquent sister. I lay back against my mountain of pillows, closed my eyes, and smiled at the ceiling. The truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't upset. I wasn't even particularly stressed about the $9,000, because in about 72 hours, that would be the least of anyone's concerns. I'd learned something important over the past few days, something that the flu and the fever and the complete betrayal of my immune system had taught me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just stepping back, following the rules, and letting the system work exactly as it was designed to work. Aunt Patricia had built a beautiful machine, and Kelsey had just walked right into it wearing designer heels. All I had to do was watch. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp, clear sunshine that felt personally offensive given my continued state of physical decay. I'd upgraded from plague victim to functioning zombie, which meant I could stand for more than 5 minutes without needing a nap, and had reduced my tissue consumption from 1 box per hour to 1 box per 3 hours. Progress, ladies and gentlemen. I was basically an inspiration. I'd been awake since 6 a.m., not because I wanted to be, but because my phone had been buzzing with texts from Maya's family group chat, a digital hellscape I'd been added to 2 years ago and had been unable to escape ever since. Kelsey had apparently posted a photo of her new handbag with the caption, "Blessed and grateful for family who supports my dreams sparkles 2 hearts," followed by approximately 47 hashtags, including hashtag bossbabe, hashtag luxury lifestyle, and my personal favorite, hashtag selfmade. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Maya's mom had responded with heart emojis. Her dad had sent a thumbs up. Various cousins and aunts had commented things like, "You deserve it, queen," and "living your best life." I stared at my phone, wheezing slightly, and thought about how this entire family was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between supporting dreams and funding delusions. At 9 a.m. sharp, my phone rang. Adler. Right on time, as always. "Good morning, Eli. How's the plague?" "Still plaguey, but I can breathe through one nostril now, so I'm calling it a win." I shuffled to the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and started making coffee because I had a feeling I was going to need the caffeine for this conversation. "Please tell me you have good news." "Better than good. Everything's confirmed and filed." I submitted the unauthorized use report to the trust administrator at 8:30 this morning. They've already flagged the account for audit, frozen all pending distributions, and sent out notification letters to all beneficiaries informing them of a financial irregularity that requires immediate investigation. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. They work fast. When there's potential fraud involved, they work very fast. Nobody wants to be the administrator who let trust funds get embezzled on their watch. I could hear the satisfaction in Adler's voice, like a proud father watching his kid win a spelling bee. The audit officially begins today. They'll review every transaction from the past 6 months, but the focus will be on the flagged charges from Friday night. I've already provided them with your statement confirming that you did not authorize Kelsey Peterson to use the corporate card, that she is not a signatory on the account, and that the purchases were entirely personal in nature. How long until the clause activates? The audit process typically takes 7 to 10 business days. Once they confirm unauthorized use, which they will, because the evidence is overwhelming, they'll send a formal notice of clause activation to all affected parties. That's when things get interesting. I took a sip of my coffee, which tasted like victory with a hint of Colombian roast. Define interesting. Well, the affected parties, meaning your wife's entire branch of the family tree, will receive a legal document explaining that due to the unauthorized use of estate funds by an immediate family member, their inheritance claims have been permanently forfeited per the terms outlined in the trust agreement. The forfeited funds, totaling approximately $217,000, will be redirected to the designated charitable organization, which in this case is the Grace Adler Historical Restoration Fund. Wait, the charity is named after you? My late wife, actually. She loved historical preservation. Your aunt was quite fond of her. He paused, and I could hear papers shuffling. The notification will also include a breakdown of the specific transactions that triggered the clause, along with itemized receipts. So they'll get to see exactly what Kelsey bought with their inheritance. I laughed, which turned into a cough, which turned into me having to sit down for a minute. When I recovered, I said, "So you're telling me that Kelsey's entire family is going to receive an official legal document that basically says your relative bought designer bags and an iPhone with money that was supposed to be yours, so now you get nothing?" That's the simplified version, yes. That's beautiful. That's poetry. That's justice in its purest form. I thought you'd appreciate it, Adler said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Now, there's one more thing we need to discuss. I'm going to need you to come into the office this week to sign some additional documentation and provide a formal in-person statement. It's standard procedure for these cases. Can you make it in, say, Wednesday afternoon? I checked my mental calendar, which was currently blank except for appointments like try not to die and consume more soup. Yeah, I can make Wednesday work. What time? 2 p.m. And Eli, his voice got more serious. You should probably bring your wife. My stomach did a weird flip that had nothing to do with the flu. Why? Because she's a beneficiary too. She'll need to be informed of the situation, and it's better if she hears it in a professional setting with me present to explain the legal ramifications. Otherwise, she's going to find out via the notification letter, and that's going to be unpleasant, as opposed to finding out in your office with her sick husband who orchestrated the whole thing. That's going to be a parade of sunshine and rainbows. Fair point. But at least in my office, there are witnesses and she can't throw anything breakable. I rubbed my face, feeling the scratch of several days' worth of stubble because grooming had taken a back seat to survival. Okay, I'll bring her. I'll tell her we need to sign some routine estate paperwork. She won't ask questions. Perfect. I'll have everything prepared. He paused again, and when he spoke, his tone had shifted to something almost paternal. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Eli? Once the audit confirms the fraud and the clause activates, there's no reversing it. The money will be gone, permanently redirected. Your wife's family will lose everything they were supposed to inherit. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Pictured Kelsey's face when she tossed that bag of soup at me, completely unbothered by what she'd done. Remembered Maya's dismissive tone when she told me I was overreacting to $9,000 in fraud. Considered the fact that not a single person in that family had apologized, offered to actually pay me back with real money, or even acknowledged that what happened was genuinely wrong. Then I thought about Aunt Patricia, who'd spent her entire life working hard, saving carefully, and building something she could leave behind for the people she loved. She'd created that clause for a reason. She'd anticipated this exact scenario. Someone taking advantage, someone assuming they could get away with it because family. I'm sure, I said. The clause exists for a reason. Kelsey triggered it. She made her choice when she took that card and went shopping at 2 in the morning. I'm just letting the consequences play out the way they were always supposed to. That's what I needed to hear. I'll see you Wednesday at 2. He hung up, and I sat there in my kitchen, coffee going cold in my hands, staring at my phone. The group chat was still going, still celebrating Kelsey's purchases, still completely oblivious to what was coming. Maya's mom had posted something about family brunch this weekend to celebrate Kelsey's success, which was such a fundamentally incorrect interpretation of the situation that I almost choked on my coffee. I decided right then that I wasn't going to say anything. Not to Maya, not to Kelsey, not to anyone. I was going to let the next week play out exactly as nature, or in this case, meticulously crafted legal documentation, intended. I'd go to work, recover from the flu, act completely normal, and wait for Wednesday afternoon when Adler would drop the bomb in the most professional, legally binding way possible. Maya came downstairs an hour later, already dressed for work, looking annoyingly well-rested and healthy. She kissed the top of my head as she passed, grabbing her travel mug from the counter. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck full of mucus, but better than yesterday. Good. Kelsey wants to have dinner this weekend to celebrate. Her successful fraud career? Maya shot me a look. Her new business venture. She's starting a luxury lifestyle consulting company. I blinked, processed that information, decided that the universe had a truly incredible sense of humor. A luxury lifestyle consulting company. Using what qualifications exactly? Her extensive experience stealing other people's money. Eli, I'm just asking, does she have a business plan? Clients? Any actual knowledge about luxury lifestyles beyond knowing how to spend $9,000 in 2 hours? Maya's face was doing that thing again where she wanted to defend her sister but was slowly realizing she didn't actually have a defense. She's figuring it out. She's passionate about it. I'm passionate about not working until I'm 90, but that doesn't mean I can start a consulting company about early retirement while I'm actively broke. She sighed, grabbing her keys. Can you just try to be supportive? For me, I smiled, the kind of smile that probably looked genuine if you didn't know me very well. Absolutely. In fact, I think we should definitely celebrate this weekend. Let's do it up big. Invite the whole family. Make it a real event. She looked surprised, pleased even. Really? You do that? Sure. Why not? It's not like anything major is happening this week that might change the family dynamic forever or anything. She hugged me, completely missing the sarcasm dripping from every word. Thank you. This means a lot to Kelsey. And to me. I know it does, sweetheart. I know it does. She left for work, and I sat there alone in the kitchen, listening to the house settle around me, watching the sunshine stream through the windows. In approximately 48 hours, I'd be sitting in Adler's office with Maya, watching her world implode in real time. In approximately 7 to 10 business days, Kelsey's entire family would receive legal notification that their inheritance had been forfeited because someone couldn't resist a designer handbag at 2 in the morning. I finished my coffee, took my medicine, and shuffled back to the couch to continue my recovery. The flu was almost gone, but the real drama? That was just getting started. Wednesday afternoon arrived with the kind of terrible timing that felt like the universe was writing a sitcom about my life and had just greenlit the season finale. I'd spent the past 2 days pretending to be blissfully ignorant while watching Maya plan Kelsey's business launch celebration with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for royal weddings or the release of a new iPhone. She'd made a Pinterest board. She'd created a group chat specifically for party planning. She'd even commissioned custom napkins that said, "Living Lux with Kelsey," in gold foil lettering, which cost $60 and made me want to scream into a pillow for approximately 45 minutes. I'd gotten better at hiding my feelings over the years, but this was testing limits I didn't know I had. Every time Maya showed me another detail, the champagne tower, the vision board station, the hired photographer to capture Kelsey's iconic moment, I had to physically bite my tongue to keep from saying, "Hey, fun fact. In about 3 days, your sister's going to be the reason your entire family loses $200,000, so maybe hold off on the gold foil napkins." But I didn't say anything. I just smiled, nodded, and counted down the hours until 2 p.m. when Adler would do all my talking for me in beautifully drafted legal language that couldn't be argued with or dismissed as overreacting. Maya and I pulled into the parking lot of Adler's office building at exactly 1:55 p.m. She was still in work mode, talking on her phone about some client presentation, completely relaxed because she thought we were just signing routine estate paperwork. I, on the other hand, felt like I was about to watch a controlled demolition of family dynamics, and I had front row seats with complimentary popcorn made of pure anxiety. "Do we really need to be here?" Maya asked as we walked toward the building, still half focused on her phone. "Can't we just sign stuff electronically?" Adler's old school. He likes in-person signatures for trust documents. Not a lie, technically, just not the complete truth, which is basically the same thing according to politicians and people who claim they only had one drink at parties. We took the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down the hallway with its generic office carpet and motivational posters about integrity that now felt deeply ironic, and arrived at Adler's office. The receptionist, Margaret, who'd been working there longer than I'd been alive, greeted us with a knowing look that made me think Adler had briefed her on what was about to happen. "Mr. Morrison, Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Adler is expecting you. Go right in." Adler's office looked exactly like you'd expect a 72-year-old estate lawyer's office to look. Darkwood furniture, shelves full of leather-bound law books that may or may not have been decorative, a desk that could probably survive a nuclear blast, and approximately 17 framed certificates proving he was qualified to ruin people's days in the most legally sound way possible. He stood when we entered, extending his hand first to Maya and then to me. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming. Please, both of you have a seat." We sat in the leather chairs across from his desk, and I noticed he'd already laid out several documents in neat stacks, each one flagged with those little colored tabs that meant "sign here" or "acknowledge your complete and total life implosion." Maya smiled politely, still completely unsuspecting. So what paperwork do we need to sign today? Adler folded his hands on his desk, and I recognized that expression. It was the same expression a doctor has right before they tell you the test results aren't good. Professional sympathy mixed with the emotional detachment necessary to deliver bad news without crying yourself. Actually, Mrs. Morrison, we're not here for you to sign anything today. We're here because there's been a development regarding your late Aunt Tinlaw's estate that requires immediate discussion. Maya's smile faltered slightly. A development? What kind of development? The kind that involves unauthorized use of estate funds and the activation of a forfeiture clause. He slid a document across the desk toward her. This is a formal audit report from the trust administrator, completed as of yesterday afternoon. I think you should read it. I watched Maya pick up the document, her eyes scanning the first page. I could see the exact moment comprehension started to hit because her face went through about 6 different expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, and then something approaching horror. This says Kelsey used a trust account card? Her voice had gone up about 2 octaves, approaching frequencies only dogs could hear. That's correct, Adler said calmly, like he was discussing the weather instead of financial devastation. On Friday evening, your sister used a corporate credit card belonging to the estate trust to make several personal purchases totaling $9,098.63. The card was in your husband's possession for legitimate estate management purposes. Your sister accessed it without authorization and used it for personal expenditures. Maya turned to look at me, her face a mixture of betrayal and dawning understanding. You knew. This is the card you were talking about. I tried to explain on Saturday, I said quietly. You told me I was overreacting. She turned back to the document, flipping through pages, and I could see her hands starting to shake slightly. What's this about a forfeiture clause? Adler leaned forward, his voice taking on that careful, measured tone lawyers use when they're about to drop a bomb. Your aunt-in-law's trust contained a very specific provision regarding unauthorized use of estate funds. The clause states, and I'm reading directly from the trust document here, any beneficiary or immediate family member of a beneficiary who engages in unauthorized use, misappropriation, or fraudulent access of estate funds shall result in immediate and permanent forfeiture of all inheritance claims for that beneficiary's entire family unit. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the wall clock ticking, each second marking another moment of Maya's understanding expanding like a mushroom cloud of financial regret. What does that mean? She whispered, even though I could tell she already knew exactly what it meant. It means that because your sister used the estate card without authorization, your entire family branch, including you, your sister, and your parents, has forfeited all claims to the inheritance that was designated for your side of the family. How much? Her voice was barely audible now. Adler glanced at another document. The forfeited amount totals $217,412. Those funds will be redirected to the designated charitable organization as outlined in the trust agreement, specifically the Grace Adler Historical Restoration Fund. Maya gasped like someone had physically punched her in the stomach. She turned to me, eyes wide, looking for something, denial, explanation, a way out. Eli, you can stop this. You can tell them it was a mistake. You can. I can't, I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice was. The clause is automatic. Once it's triggered, it's permanent. That's how your aunt designed it. But she's just... Maya stopped herself, probably realizing that saying just a girl for the 900th time wasn't going to magically conjure $200,000 back into existence. Adler spoke up, his voice professional but not unkind. Mrs. Morrison, I understand this is shocking, but I need you to understand that this clause was put in place specifically to protect the estate from this exact type of situation. Your husband's aunt witnessed significant family financial disputes during her lifetime, and she wanted to ensure that her estate would not be subject to similar conflicts or unauthorized access. Maya was staring at the document like it might burst into flames or reveal itself to be an elaborate prank. Kelsey didn't know. She didn't know it was a trust account. She just thought it was Eli's regular card. Ignorance of the law doesn't negate the consequences, Adler said, which was a very lawyerly way of saying tough luck, should have raised your sister better. This isn't fair. Maya's voice was rising now, tears starting to form in her eyes. You set us up. Both of you. You knew this would happen, and you just let it happen. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding. No, Maya. I didn't set anyone up. Kelsey took my card, without asking, without permission, in the middle of the night while I was sick with the flu, and spent $9,000 on luxury items she didn't need and couldn't afford. She made that choice. The clause was already there, written years before we even got married. I didn't create the trap. She walked into it all by herself. You could have warned her. You could have told us about the clause. I did tell you. Multiple times. I told you about the trust. I told you about the stipulations. I told you that Aunt Patricia's estate had serious legal protections. You told me I was being boring and that we could talk about it later. Well, it's later now. Adler cleared his throat. Mrs. Morrison, I have to inform you that the forfeiture is final and irrevocable. The audit has been completed, the unauthorized charges confirmed, and the clause has been legally activated. There is no appeals process, no reversal mechanism, and no legal remedy available. Maya buried her face in her hands, and I could see her shoulders shaking. Part of me, the part that still loved her despite everything, wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But the larger part of me, the part that had been dismissed and minimized and told I was overreacting for caring about basic financial responsibility, stayed quiet and let the moment sink in. After a long silence, Maya looked up, mascara starting to run, her voice thick with tears and something that might have been rage. How am I supposed to tell my family? How am I supposed to explain this to my parents? To Kelsey. With honesty, I said simply, you tell them that Kelsey committed fraud, triggered a legal clause, and cost the family $200,000. You tell them that actions have consequences. You tell them that gold foil napkins and vision board stations aren't going to fix the fact that someone in this family thought stealing was acceptable as long as you called it a mistake. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before, like I'd suddenly transformed into a stranger. You really did this. You actually let this happen. No, I corrected her. Kelsey did this. I just decided to stop protecting people from their own choices. The car ride home was the kind of silent that makes you understand why people in movies sometimes just drive off cliffs to escape uncomfortable situations. Maya sat in the passenger seat staring out the window like she was watching her entire life flash before her eyes in reverse. Except instead of heartwarming memories, it was just a montage of designer handbags and missed warning signs. I kept my eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2, driving with the careful precision of someone who knew that any sudden movements might cause an emotional detonation that would take out everything within a 3-block radius. We pulled into our driveway, and before I'd even turned off the engine, Maya was out of the car and storming toward the house with the kind of purposeful rage that usually precedes someone putting all your belongings on the lawn or changing the locks. I followed at a safe distance, mentally preparing myself for whatever was about to happen. I'd been through wars. Well, not actual wars, but I'd survived Black Friday at Best Buy once, which felt spiritually similar. The front door slammed open so hard I was worried it might actually fall off the hinges, which would be fitting because everything else in our life was currently falling apart. So why not add home repairs to the list? Maya dropped her purse on the floor, kicked off her heels with enough force to leave dents in the wall, and whirled around to face me with the fury of someone who'd just realized they'd been playing checkers while everyone else was playing chess. You humiliated my sister, she yelled, and I noticed the neighbor's curtains twitch across the street because apparently Mrs. Henderson had impeccable timing when it came to free entertainment. I closed the door calmly, locked it, and walked to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of orange juice because if I was going to have this fight, I at least wanted to stay hydrated. Correction, I educated your sister. The tuition was $9,000, which is actually pretty reasonable considering most private universities charge about 60 grand a year. This isn't funny. You're right, it's not funny. It's hilarious. There's a difference. I took a sip of my juice, leaning against the counter like we were having a casual conversation about weekend plans instead of the complete implosion of her family's financial future. Your sister stole from me, Maya. She committed fraud. And instead of apologizing, accepting responsibility, or showing even a microscopic amount of remorse, she showed up at our house in brand new designer heels acting like she'd done me a favor by bringing soup from the grocery store. Maya started pacing, which is what she did when she was trying to organize her thoughts, but her thoughts were currently scattered across the floor like marbles rolling in every direction. You could have stopped this. You could have told Adler to hold off on the audit. You could have given her a chance to pay you back. With what money, Maya? Her trust fund? Oh wait, she doesn't have one. Her successful business? Oh wait, that doesn't exist. Her steady income? Oh wait, she quit her last job because someone asked her to show up on time. I set down my glass, folding my arms. Let me ask you something. When exactly was this magical payback supposed to happen? Next week? Next month? Next year? When she finally sells enough luxury lifestyle consultations to people who probably have more financial sense than to hire someone whose primary qualification is knowing how to max out credit cards. She stopped pacing and glared at me with enough intensity to melt steel. You enjoy this, don't you? You love watching my family suffer. No, Maya, I don't enjoy this. You know what I would have enjoyed? Not getting the flu. Not waking up at 3 in the morning to fraud alerts. Not spending the past 5 days being told I'm dramatic and cruel for having the audacity to care about $9,000 disappearing from my account. Not being gaslit by my own wife who apparently thinks family means consequence-free zone where theft is totally cool as long as you smile while doing it. Her eyes were filling with tears again, and I felt that familiar tug of guilt that came from years of being conditioned to believe that making someone cry automatically made you the villain, regardless of whether you were actually wrong or just telling uncomfortable truths. I thought you loved me. I thought family meant something to you. Family does mean something to me. It means honesty. It means accountability. It means not enabling destructive behavior just because someone's related to you by blood or marriage. Your sister stole from me, Maya. From me. Your husband. The person you promised to honor and respect and build a life with. And your first instinct wasn't to be angry at her. It was to be angry at me for noticing. She wiped her eyes, smudging her mascara further. So what now? You've destroyed my family over a credit card bill. No, Kelsey destroyed your family over a shopping spree. I just declined to fix her mess with my money, my time, and my willingness to pretend it never happened. The tears were flowing freely now, and she was doing that hiccuping sob thing that would normally make me want to comfort her, but I stayed where I was, maintaining my position against the counter like it was a defensive fortification. My parents are going to hate you. Kelsey's going to hate you. Everyone's going to hate you. They can get in line behind my immune system and Chase Bank's fraud department, I said. Look, I get it. This sucks. I'm not happy about it either. But here's the thing. I didn't write that clause. Your aunt did. I didn't trigger it. Kelsey did. I didn't hide the consequences. I told you repeatedly that there were serious legal protections on that estate. You just didn't want to listen because listening would have required acknowledging that your sister is a 24-year-old walking disaster who makes terrible decisions and expects everyone else to clean up after her. Maya slumped down onto one of the kitchen chairs, her head in her hands. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth. That Kelsey committed fraud, triggered a forfeiture clause, and cost the family $200,000. That actions have consequences. That just a girl doesn't hold up as a legal defense. They're never going to forgive this. Maybe not. But maybe that's not actually my problem. I grabbed my orange juice and started walking toward the stairs. I'm going to go lie down because I'm still recovering from the flu that nobody seems to remember I have. When you're ready to have a conversation that doesn't involve blaming me for other people's choices, you know where to find me. I made it halfway up the stairs before she spoke again, her voice quieter now, defeated. I defended her. To you. I told you to let it go. I called you dramatic. I paused, turned to look at her sitting there in our kitchen surrounded by the wreckage of her denial. Yeah, you did. I should have listened to you. Yeah, you should have. Are we going to be okay? That was the question, wasn't it? The big one. The one that actually mattered underneath all the drama and the money and the family chaos. I looked at my wife, the woman I'd married 3 years ago, the person I'd built a life with, the human being who'd just spent the past week prioritizing her sister's feelings over my legitimate complaints about literal theft, and I realized I didn't actually know the answer. I don't know, Maya. Are we? She didn't answer, and I didn't wait for one. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and collapsed onto the bed that still smelled faintly of the flu-induced sweat fest from earlier in the week. My phone immediately started buzzing with notifications, and I made the mistake of checking it. The family group chat had exploded. Apparently Maya had sent a message, probably through tears and rage, explaining what had happened. The responses were exactly what you'd expect from a family that had just learned their golden child had cost them a six-figure inheritance. Maya's mom, this can't be real. There has to be something we can do. Maya's dad, I'm calling our lawyer. This is ridiculous. Kelsey, OMG, I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? This is so unfair. Random cousin Jennifer, wait, what happened? Kelsey, Eli ruined everything because I'm successful and he's jealous. I stared at that last message, watching the dots appear and disappear as more people typed, and I felt something crack inside me that wasn't quite laughter and wasn't quite despair. I was jealous. Of course. I was jealous of her ability to commit fraud and still somehow make herself the victim. I was jealous of her talent for destroying things and walking away without a scratch. I was jealous of her complete and total lack of self-awareness that allowed her to sleep soundly at night while everyone else dealt with the consequences of her choices. More messages flooded in. Maya's mom, Eli, you need to fix this. Family is more important than money. Aunt Carol, I always knew he was cold. Maya deserves better. Kelsey, literally crying RN. I was just trying to invest in my business and now everyone's mad at me. I turned off my phone and threw it across the room, where it landed on a pile of dirty laundry I'd been meaning to deal with for 3 days. The house was quiet except for the sound of Maya crying downstairs and the distant hum of the refrigerator doing its job despite the emotional apocalypse happening around it. That night, she didn't come to bed. I heard her moving around downstairs, heard the TV turn on and off, heard her talking on the phone in hushed, angry whispers that occasionally rose to normal volume when she forgot she was trying to be quiet. I caught fragments. He planned this. So cold. I don't know if I can forgive this. What am I supposed to do? Around 2 a.m., my phone, retrieved from the laundry pile during a bathroom break, lit up with a text from Maya, "You ruined us." Then another, "You're heartless." Then, 5 minutes later, "Also, can you pick up oat milk? We're out." I stared at that last text for a solid minute, trying to process the emotional whiplash of going from heartless to grocery requests in under 10 minutes. It was so perfectly, absurdly, quintessentially Maya that I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I typed back, "Sure. Anything else you need from the store? Perhaps some accountability? They usually keep it next to the common sense, but it's been out of stock lately." She didn't respond, which was probably for the best, because I was running out of sarcastic grocery store metaphors and my brain was too tired to come up with new ones. I lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle, thinking about how we'd gotten here. 3 years ago, we'd been happy. Or at least I thought we'd been happy. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe I'd been ignoring warning signs the same way Maya had been ignoring Kelsey's red flags. Maybe this whole disaster wasn't just about a credit card and a trust fund. Maybe it was about patterns we'd both been too comfortable to address until they'd exploded in our faces like a financial pipe bomb wrapped in designer packaging. Or maybe I was overthinking it because it was 2 in the morning and I was still recovering from the flu and my brain felt like lukewarm pudding. Either way, tomorrow was going to be interesting. Thursday morning arrived with all the enthusiasm of a dental appointment, and I woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and the kind of tension headache that felt like my brain was trying to escape through my eye sockets. Maya had apparently slept on the couch, or more accurately, hadn't slept at all based on the dark circles under her eyes when I saw her in the kitchen, clutching a coffee mug like it was the only thing tethering her to sanity. We didn't speak. She left for work without saying goodbye, which was fine because I wasn't sure what there was to say at this point that hadn't already been said, screamed, or passive-aggressively texted at 2 in the morning. I got ready for work in silence, picked out a tie that said, "I'm a functioning adult who definitely didn't just nuke his marriage over estate law," and headed to the office with the grim determination of someone walking toward their own execution, but with better parking. I made it to about 10:30 before my desk phone rang. Internal extension. From HR. Eli Morrison speaking. "Hi, Eli, it's Sandra from HR." Her voice had that careful, overly cheerful quality that people use when they're about to deliver news that's going to make your day significantly worse. "I just wanted to give you a heads up that your wife is here in the lobby. She seems emotional. She's asking to see you." My stomach dropped into my shoes and possibly through the floor into the basement level. Define emotional. "She's crying." and she's holding a balloon. A very large balloon that says sorry in glitter letters. It's causing a bit of a scene. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages, none of which helped. I'll be right down. The walk from my third-floor office to the lobby felt like the Green Mile. Except instead of walking toward execution, I was walking toward whatever fresh hell had manifested in the form of my wife having an emotional breakdown in my place of employment. I could hear her before I saw her. That particular pitch of crying that happens when someone's been at it for a while and has moved past elegant tears into full snotty desperation. The lobby of our building was one of those modern corporate spaces with too much glass, uncomfortable minimalist furniture, and a giant company logo that was supposed to inspire confidence in our clients, but mostly just made everyone feel like they were living in a dystopian tech startup. And there, right in front of said logo, was Maya. She looked like she'd gotten dressed in the dark after a 3-day bender. Her hair was in a messy ponytail, her makeup was smudged and running, and she was wearing what appeared to be yoga pants and one of my old college sweatshirts, which I'm pretty sure violated at least 3 workplace dress codes despite the fact that she didn't actually work here. In her hands was indeed a giant balloon. One of those massive foil monstrosities that usually gets released at gender reveal parties or sad corporate celebrations, emblazoned with the word sorry in sparkly letters that caught the fluorescent lighting and threw little rainbows across the marble floor. She saw me emerge from the elevator and immediately launched into what I can only describe as a performance piece titled, "Please Don't Leave Me," a tragedy in one act. "Eli," she cried, loud enough that every single person in the lobby, and there were approximately 30 people including clients, colleagues, the security guard, and a very confused delivery person, stopped what they were doing to watch. "You can't destroy my sister over a mistake. You just can't." I felt my face go through several temperature changes, finally settling on approximately the surface of the sun. Around me, I could see co-workers peeking out from offices, hear the whispers starting, notice my boss, my actual boss, Gerald, who controlled my promotions and annual reviews, poke his head around the corner from the conference room with an expression of pure fascination. "Maya," I said quietly, walking toward her with the careful approach of someone trying to coax a wild animal away from a highway. "This isn't the place for this conversation." "When is the place, Eli? You won't talk to me at home. You're ignoring my texts. You're just letting this happen like it doesn't matter." She was full-on sobbing now, the balloon bobbing above her head like some kind of demented apologetic halo. "She's just young. She made a mistake. She didn't mean to ruin everything." People were definitely staring now. I could see phones coming out, which meant this was absolutely going to end up on someone's social media with a caption like "corporate drama alert" or "when your personal life crashes your professional life." Fantastic. I'd always wanted to go viral, preferably for something that didn't involve my wife's family's fraud charges. "Maya," I tried again, my voice still low but firm. "Stealing isn't a mistake. It's a crime. A crime that comes with receipts, bank statements, and legal consequences that I explained to you multiple times before any of this happened." "But she's family," Maya wailed, and I swear I saw 3 people in the lobby simultaneously wince at the pitch she'd reached. Family is supposed to forgive. Family is supposed to help each other. Family doesn't destroy each other over money. "You're right," I said, and I could feel something cold and sharp settling in my chest. Family shouldn't destroy each other. Which is why it's so interesting that your sister destroyed your family's inheritance by stealing from me, and somehow I'm the villain in this story. The lobby had gone completely silent. Even the elevator had stopped dinging. It was like the entire building was holding its breath, waiting to see what happened next in this absolutely mortifying drama that I was now starring in against my will. Gerald had fully emerged from the conference room now, arms crossed, watching with the intense interest of someone who'd just stumbled upon the most entertaining thing that had happened at work in months. Sandra from HR was standing near the reception desk, probably already composing the email she'd send to legal about whether this constituted a workplace disruption. Maya took a step closer to me, her face red and blotchy, mascara creating abstract art down her cheeks. "You could have stopped it, Eli. You could have told Adler to wait. You could have given her a chance. But you didn't. You just let it happen because you wanted to punish her. Because you wanted to be right." "No," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. I let it happen because I'm tired of being the safety net for people who keep jumping off cliffs. I'm tired of fixing problems I didn't create. I'm tired of being told I'm cruel for expecting basic human decency and legal behavior from adults who should know better. She's 24. I was paying rent and student loans at 24, Maya. I was working 2 jobs. I was eating ramen and budgeting and trying to build a life that didn't involve stealing from people. My voice had risen despite my best efforts, and I could feel 3 years of frustration bubbling up like a shaken soda can. At 24, I had a cholesterol problem from stress and cheap food. Your sister has a shopping addiction and a victim complex. A few people in the crowd actually chuckled, quickly covering it up with coughs when Maya whirled around to glare at them. The balloon bobbed dramatically, the glitter catching the light like some kind of apology disco ball. She turned back to me, and for a moment, I thought maybe she'd finally hear what I was saying. Maybe something would click. Maybe she'd realize that defending Kelsey wasn't the same as loving her, and that enabling wasn't the same as supporting. But then she said, "Everyone always said you were cold. My mom warned me. She said you cared more about money than people. I should have listened." And there it was, the nuclear option. The thing you say when you want to make sure the other person knows you've been storing ammunition, just waiting for the right moment to deploy it. The thing that tells you the argument isn't about what it's about anymore. It's about every resentment that's been quietly festering for years, waiting for an excuse to surface. I looked at her standing there in my office lobby, holding a sad balloon, wearing my old sweatshirt, crying in front of my colleagues and boss, and the very confused delivery person who just wanted to drop off a package and leave. I looked at the gathering crowd, at Sandra's concerned face, at Gerald's barely concealed entertainment. I thought about the past week, the flu, the fraud, the fights, the complete inability of anyone in her family to accept responsibility for anything. And I realized something. I was done. Not done with my marriage necessarily. That was a bigger question that required more thought and probably therapy, but done with this scene, this performance, this public display of dysfunction that was currently tanking my professional reputation in real time. I walked over to Maya, gently took the balloon from her hands. It tried to float away, but I grabbed the string and handed it to Sandra. "Can you hold this for a second?" Sandra took it, looking confused but willing to help. I turned back to Maya, keeping my voice quiet enough that only she could hear. "We're going to walk outside now. Calmly, like adults. And we're going to finish this conversation somewhere that isn't my place of employment where I need these people to take me seriously and not think of me as that guy whose wife had a breakdown in the lobby. I'm not going anywhere until you promise to fix this." "Maya, I can't fix this. Kelsey broke it. The clause sealed it. It's done. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner we can all move on with our lives and figure out what comes next." She stared at me, tears still streaming, breathing hard. "I hate you right now. I know you do. But we're still leaving this lobby." I gently took her arm. She didn't resist, which I took as a good sign, and walked her toward the exit. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, everyone trying to look busy with their phones or papers while absolutely still watching every second of this drama. Gerald gave me a small nod as I passed, which I chose to interpret as handle your business, rather than start updating your resume. We made it outside into the parking lot, where the November air was cold enough to be clarifying. Maya pulled away from me, wrapping her arms around herself. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Go home. Call your sister. Tell her the truth. Stop trying to make me the villain in a story where someone literally committed fraud. And us." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just my wife but the accumulation of every fight we'd avoided, every boundary we'd failed to set, every time we'd chosen peace over honesty. I don't know, Maya. I really don't. But I know that whatever us looks like going forward, it can't include me being blamed for other people's choices or being expected to fix problems that aren't mine to fix. She nodded slowly, like she was hearing me for the first time in days. Or maybe for the first time ever. Then she turned and walked to her car, got in, and drove away without looking back. I stood there for a minute, watching her leave, before heading back inside where I had to face approximately 30 witnesses to my personal life imploding in high definition. Sandra still had the balloon. "You can throw that away," I told her. "You sure? It cost at least $20. "I'm very sure." Gerald appeared at my elbow as Sandra disposed of the world's most expensive apology. "That was quite a show, Morrison." "Yeah, Sorry about that. Don't be. Best entertainment we've had since Johnson microwaved fish in the break room. He clapped me on the shoulder. Take the rest of the day. Get your head straight. Come back Monday ready to work. I nodded, grateful for the escape route. Thanks, Gerald. And Morrison? For what it's worth, you handled that with more patience than most people would have. Sometimes standing your ground is the right call, even when it's hard. I went home, crawled into bed, and slept for 14 hours straight. A week later, 7 days of blessed silence, separate bedrooms, and the kind of tension that makes you understand why some people just fake their own deaths and move to Costa Rica. They both showed up at our door looking like they'd been through a war. Kelsey's designer confidence had evaporated, replaced with red-rimmed eyes and yesterday's makeup. Maya looked worse, like she'd been surviving on coffee and existential dread. Maya started before they even fully entered the living room. We got the notice from the court. The official one. It's real. I nodded from my position on the couch, where I'd been living my best hermit life. It's been real since the minute she swiped my card at 2 a.m. to buy a handbag that cost more than most people's rent. Kelsey's face crumpled like a paper bag. You could have stopped it. You could have called the bank. You could have done something. I could have stopped it the same way I could have stopped your spending. By confiscating your phone, implementing parental controls, and treating you like the irresponsible child you apparently still are despite being old enough to rent a car and vote. This is all your fault. No, Kelsey. This is what happens when you commit fraud and trigger a legal clause that was specifically designed to catch people like you. And then she said the thing that changed everything. Maya told me it'd be fine. She said you'd never find out. She said. The room went silent. Maya's face drained of color. I turned to look at my wife very slowly. You what? 2 months later, the dust had settled in the most anticlimactic way possible. The estate finalized everything. $217,000 redirected to the Grace Adler Historical Restoration Fund, which sent me a thank you letter with a photo of a restored Victorian mansion. I hung it on the fridge next to Maya's handwritten apology note, because I'm petty and also because it was genuinely funny. Maya stayed, not out of love initially, but out of sheer embarrassment and the fact that explaining this disaster to her next boyfriend seemed worse than just working through it. Also, I'm the only one who knows the Wi-Fi password and how to fix the garbage disposal, which apparently counts for something in modern marriage. Kelsey moved to Portland or Austin or some other city where failed influencers go to start fresh. Last I heard, she's working at a shoe store, which feels like cosmic justice considering she once spent $3,000 on designer heels in a single transaction. The family stopped talking to me, which honestly improved my mental health significantly. Thanksgiving got a lot quieter. Christmas cards got a lot cheaper. One night, about 8 weeks after everything imploded, Maya and I were eating takeout when she sighed. I still can't believe you trapped us like that. I smiled, twirling lo mein on my fork. You call it a trap. I call it a legally binding reminder not to mess with a man on flu medication who actually reads the fine print. She laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. What did you learn from all this? Easy. Next time I get the flu, I'm hiding my wallet, changing all my passwords, and installing a safe that requires both a fingerprint and a blood sample to open. And what about us? I looked at her. We're still figuring that out. But at least now we're doing it honestly. She nodded. That was enough. For now.